Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to the public reading for Wall Literary Journal. I'm Gina Victoria Schaefer, a professor of English here at Saddleback, who serves as faculty advisor to the journal. My co-host this evening is Brooke Campbell, the editor-in-chief of Wall 2017. Brooke graduated with an associate's degree in English literature from Saddleback in May of this year and is now a creative writing major at California State University, Long Beach. While at Saddleback, Brooke worked as a tutor in the LRC Tutoring Center, where she specialized in guiding students through the challenge of successfully completing essays for English composition. As editor-in-chief of Wall, she devoted her keen critical consciousness and exemplary aesthetic sensibilities to creating a superb edition of our award-winning literary journal. I'd like to acknowledge the people who have worked behind the scenes and offered their financial and physical support for this event and for Wall in general. Some of them are attending this evening. I'd like to call your attention to the back of your program. There's a list of acknowledgments for all of those who have been supporters of Wall. I'd first of all, in particular, like to thank Kevin O'Connor. So when I call your name, please stand. Kevin O'Connor, Dean of the Liberal Arts Division. Dean O'Connor has been a stalwart supporter of Wall. I'd also like to acknowledge Dr. Gregory Anderson, who's standing in the back. He's Saddleback's new president. And I'm very appreciative that he took time out of his first week on the job to be here tonight. So thank you and welcome. I'd also like to thank Professor of Speech Larry Radden, whose students will be doing oral interpretations of some of the stories this evening. He's been regularly contributing this event by preparing his students to dramatically Those students dramatically and sensitively render a diverse range of pieces from Wall. Actually, we're fortunate to have Larry presenting this evening, so you'll get to see his dramatic talents. So others in the audience include Jordan Larson, the student trustee from the Board of Trustees for the South Orange County Community College District. So. Thank you. And those of you who are standing, go ahead and come on down, and there's some seats up in the front. So thank you to all of you who have helped make this evening possible and contributed to the continued development of Wall.
Every spring, students in English 160, a 3-unit class, get involved hands-on in creating Wall, which is published once a year. The student staffers read submissions of poems, personal narratives, and short stories, and review photographs and artwork, all from Saddleback College students, and select the pieces that will end up in our 124-page journal. When the selection process is completed, editors immerse themselves in the challenging and time-consuming task of editing and proofreading to catch all those misguided commas, missing letters, and mischievous typos lurking within the thousands of words that fill the pages of Wall. But it's important to strive for perfection, especially since Wall has established a national presence. Since 2012, the journal has won a first prize award in a national competition among college literary journals sponsored by the American Scholastic Press Association. In fact, last year's 2016 edition received special commendation through a First Place with Merit magazine award for an outstanding overall example of a scholastic publication in format, content, and presentation.
Last fall, as my sabbatical project, I developed a website for Wall that includes a digital archive of past editions and public readings, as well as behind-the-scenes features about staffers and contributors. So I invite you to check us out online. We have business cards in the table that's in the lobby, so definitely pick up a card. It has our URL. So hopefully everybody has a copy of Wall, because I'll be referencing it throughout the evening. This year's Wall takes a cosmic turn of sorts in its design emphasis, as you can see from the colorful image on the cover. One of our graphic designers, Charlotte Hughes, designed the cover using artwork from artist Olga Perlman. You'll be hearing from Olga and Charlotte a bit later. As part of Charlotte's design, she incorporated a starburst sky overlooking a mountain peak on the back cover. So turn over on the back cover. It was purely accidental, but as it turns out, her design pays tribute to Saddleback Mountain, the visual emblem and namesake of our campus. The back cover design also features the mystical fifth element, which derives from the Platonic solids, elements that the Greek philosopher depicted through geometric shapes. In the editor's note on page 7, you'll see the 4 other elements referenced, which are fire, earth, air, and water. Every story or poem in Wall ends with one of these motifs as a unifying feature. In her editor's note, with characteristic eloquence, Brooke sums up the significance of these visual symbols. So I'm quoting from Brooke. By using the Platonic solids to unify the varying submissions, the staff members and I found a sense of peace that resonated with us in a beautiful and rather philosophical sense. Though we, as human beings, may live in different cultures, eat different foods, dress in different fashions, or celebrate and grieve in different ways, we remain in unity as a race of people who possess the capacity for love, experience the heartache of pain, and ultimately desire the reality of peace. It is my hope that, just as the Platonic solids have united our varying submissions, we as a people sharing a common humanity might unite and embrace our differences. Thank you for those inspiring words. For the written works to be read this evening, poems will be presented in their entirety, while excerpts of the short stories and personal narratives will be featured. Be sure to read the rest of the works on your own. Please note that the page number for each work is listed in the program, so please feel free to follow along in your books. The artwork will be projected on the screen.
Our first presenter of the evening is Olga Perelman, who will reveal the artistic process involved in creating our beautiful, eye-catching cover.
Hello, I'm Olga Perelman, and I'm a graphic designer, illustrator, and printmaker. And I've been at Saddleback for 3 years, and I got my AA this past fall while studying graphic design and fine arts. And at the moment, I'm not continuing for a further degree, but I'm focusing more on gaining experience in graphic design and illustration through various online jobs and freelancing. And I'm also focusing on expanding my brand that I launched this past May, Inner Peach Design, and yeah, just working on that. So this piece titled The Epitome of Olga was originally a three-color reduction print. And what a reduction print is that the more colors that you want to print on your paper, you have to carve away on your block. And so this piece is what's left over of the block. It was my last blue layer. And my inspiration stems from a lot of whimsical kind of vibes, and this one, it's kind of whimsical and childlike, but I like to incorporate something in my pieces usually that you have to think about. So in this piece, for example, you have to think about whether the girl is life-size and the dandelions are really, really big, or the girl is tiny and the dandelions are life-size. So just things like that I like incorporating into my art. And what's really great is that our printmaking professor, Erin, she always encourages us to experiment with various mediums and textures and so forth in our process. So when I had my leftover plate, I thought it would be kind of interesting to experiment with something other than white paper. And while I was working on this print, my mom was visiting family in Russia, and I knew that she would be coming home with a bunch of Russian candy in her suitcase. So I thought about how cool it would be to try to print on Russian candy wrappers. And so that's what I did. When she came home, I put them all together, and I did one print, And even though the colors aren't necessarily cohesive, I just really like how it turned out because it really connects with me. Since this girl kind of represents me, and I am flying and I seek adventure. I have this long flowy hair just like her. And then the candy wrappers, they always connect with me in all my life through my childhood and stuff. So that is why I titled it The Epitome of Olga.
Our next presenter is Charlotte Hughes, one of the 2 graphic designers, layout editors for Wall. Charlotte was supremely committed to making Wall look aesthetically pleasing. I commend her for her dedication and innovation. She used her skills in graphic design to showcase Olga's linocut and developed the brilliant concept of using platonic solids throughout the pages of Wall.
Hi, thanks, Olga. You had such a beautiful, we just all loved it so much we wanted to make it the cover. So thank you for that, because it made Arnold and I's design just even better.
Oh, Charlotte, could you speak closer into the
sure.
microphone? We
Sorry.
can't hear you.
Did you hear any of that? Okay. I didn't really prepare anything to say right now, but basically, the platonic solids are all a different element of the earth, and it was interesting reading through all the pieces and connecting each one to a different element. Like, I have a poem in there called Watercolor, which I might read later, and that one obviously fits exactly kind of with the element water, but some of them, it's interesting because it kind of depends how you interpret a piece, what element you might attribute to it. So even while you're reading, think about it before you look at the one that we chose. It might make you think about it in a different way. I don't know if Arnold's here, but he also designed with me, so I'm not the only one. He deserves a lot of credit too.
Yeah, Arnold Augustine was our other graphic designer, and I don't think he's here this evening, but he was a major contributor. Both
Yeah.
Charlotte and Arnold worked beautifully to create this edition of Wall. So Charlotte gets to stay up there because in addition to being a talented creative designer, Charlotte writes graceful and intricate poems, one of them being Watercolor, which she will read now.
Only the divine can walk on water, but we can walk through puddles. Splashing and sprinkling on the sidewalk, I tiptoe through rippling thoughts. My socks are soaked, but my shoes are awake. Rain is a weather of many notes, and its metronome is a thought keeper, inviting me into its realm and closing the door with a key to the world. Each sound sticks like a stamp, sending me to a different destination. Inspiration works like this. Raindrops fall like arrows, shooting across the ocean blue sky and striking the attentive with their knife-sharp points. Colors bleed like blood into unexpected places. All of these underwater dreams, they skip like stones as I cast them out, writing them down in a murmur of fingerprints on pressing keys.
Our next piece was penned by Alicia Miranda, who served as one of our 2 poetry editors for Wall. You'll get to hear her poetic way with words as she reads her short story.
Hello, my name is Alicia Miranda, and I'm a sophomore at Saddleback, and I'm a major in communications, and I guess my piece is titled Colors. I don't have a specific memory of heartbreak at the time I wrote this. I was more inspired because my friend showed me a doodle of just this really abstract kind of amalgamation of colors that really spoke something to me, so I'm just going to read the first section of it. The very first color heartbreak was supposed to feel was blue, right? Well, I saw red. I saw the red of the blush that crept on his cheeks when we went out for the first time. I saw the red dress that he loved so much. I saw the red of my cheeks as I felt my face heat up with anger for being so upset. Then I saw red blend with purple, and I saw a different set of images. I saw the soft purple orchids he had given me on my birthday. I saw the purple hue of the sky as we drove through the desert, believing that our love would last as long as the stars. I saw the purple of his tie when I dragged him to my cousin's wedding. Now purple reminded me of my heart's bruises. Next was green. His eyes popped into my vision automatically. His clear green eyes that saw me for who I am and chose to love me anyway. The green grass we chose to stain our jeans with when we went to run away from the world into our own hideaway. Now, it is the green mold that had built itself in our fresh spring of love. Next was yellow. Like the summers we spent lying on the grass with youth by our side. I saw the yellow sands where we had carved our names, knowing full well that the ocean was going to wash it away clean at any given moment. But that was what gave it fire, ironically. The knowledge that our names together could be washed away at any given moment was our fuel. You spent these last 8 months burning a fire we didn't quite completely understand. We rode on its passions. We got caught in the energy it gave. We believed in the life it had given. Now, it is all washed away in some unknown storm, where the blue ocean met with the gray sky and crashed upon every single structure we had built. Everything we had known shook and fell apart. The bricks of our relationship were crumbling, and we did nothing but watch the ocean continue to rage against our walls, leaving us with nothing but the faint memory of some colors that once were, and a vague outline of our names in the sand. Then a tear escaped my eye and stained everything blue.
It's my pleasure to introduce Elaine Michaels Cohen, who has graced a previous Rawl reading with a humorous account of her Aunt Belle. She's here tonight to enlighten us with a humorous take, this time on a serious subject.
My name's Elaine Michaels Cohen. I'm a retired teacher. I taught in Connecticut for 35 years and then moved to California, which is my reward. Nobody dies. A dear friend died last week. She had cancer, she died, and she's dead. An acquaintance who was 101 years old also died last week. She is also dead. Why don't we use those words? We use euphemisms instead. She has passed. I'm glad she did not fail. He has transitioned and is on his journey. Where is he going? He is now in a different dimension, no longer 3D. Elvis has left the building in a limo or a hearse. I lost my spouse. That is sloppy housekeeping. Go find him or her. He is gone now. When will he be back? The late Mary Smith. I have a friend who has never been on time in her whole life. Would it be appropriate to call her the late Linda while she is very much alive? He has left his earthly home. Is he now floating in the infinite universe? I picture a little angel flying around playing a harp and eating Philadelphia cream cheese, the heavenly cream cheese. My favorite is, he is now in the loving arms of Jesus. What about Jews, Muslims, Hindus, Buddhists, Shintos, or Druids? Nobody kicks the bucket anymore, but we all have bucket lists. Nobody buys the farm. Farming is a thing of the past. Now we have agribusinesses. We do use the word dying in a strange way. I am dying to see you. I died laughing. We still manage to speak the words, and we are still alive after speaking them. I am not without feelings, and I understand we have to do what we have to do to assuage our grief and sometimes guilt. If using a euphemism makes you feel better, by all means do so. The ancient said you are still alive as long as the last person on earth remembers your name. I believe when you're dead, you're dead. We live on in the hearts and minds of the people who loved us. That is good enough for me.
Next up is Adrian Ochoa, whose interest in linguistics is supremely evident in the intricate way he uses words to describe our use of words.
Hello, my name's Adrian Ochoa, and I'm a sophomore here at Saddleback. This is going to be my second to last semester. I'm planning on transferring after next one, and I hope you all enjoy.
Visual, sound, repeating uniquely. read, said, and listened to, seen by the deaf and felt by the blind, consumed and vomited by everyone. Organic in evolution, static and stereotype. Words, yet not meaning, transcend life. Still, emotion embodying perspective. Words are quiet, despite their yells. Can you hear your voice speaking my words? We can't talk, yet now you know everything about me.
It's my pleasure to introduce Jessica Pham, another member of the Wall staff who artfully uses flowers as a metaphor for love, loss, and longing in her lovely short story, The Language of Flowers. Jessica was a recipient of an award in a poetry competition in campus this past spring.
Hi. Wait. Okay. My name's Jessica Pham. I'm a sophomore here, and I always thought it was fascinating how every flower had an individual meaning. So that's kind of what inspired this story. I hope you enjoy.
Reading from the piece as an oral interpretation is Shirley Aramo, who is reprising her role as a reader in a past public reading. Shirley has played starring roles in many theatrical productions here on campus and served as a fiction editor and art editor for Wall 2012.
Nobody ever gives flowers to someone they despise, which was just one of many unfortunate social norms, as there were plenty of flowers that could portray April's hatred toward her ex-boyfriend more accurately than she ever could. If Douglas opened his door to an arrangement from her, red snapdragons would roar at him. "Douglas, you dirty cheater, you lied to me." Then to top it off, she would frame the snapdragons with orange lilies, a glowing halo of her hatred. After 4 years together, it was likely Douglas knew the language of flowers as well as April did, since her version of pillow talk was listing flowers and their meanings. Sometimes she could go on for hours. By the time she finished explaining that gardenias symbolize a secret love, peonies represent a happy marriage, and so on and so forth, April would glance over in the dark, expecting to see Douglas's eyes closed, his breaths deep and even. But in the beginning, his brown eyes would shine back at her, completely amused by her rambling. And that, April decided, was what made her fall in love with him. His ability to make her feel cute and smart when she talked about what she loved, while others typically zoned her out. But as the months together turned into years, he was often too busy to listen to her rambling, too busy to ever see her at all. Instead, all his time was spent lying about late work nights, letting another girl's lipstick form petals on his lips, her nails embedding roots into his back. As snow fell like white cherry blossoms outside, April shook the bitter memory from her head and focused on her work. As she stood in her small flower shop, arranging a combination of lavender, pink, and red roses in a bouquet bound together with craft paper and satin ribbons, she noted what each flower was saying: lavender for love at first sight, pink for happiness, and red for eternal love. A year ago, the romantic that lived within April since she was a little girl would have loved this bouquet's story. Though most customers who came into her shop were oblivious to each flower, what they were saying to them, choosing their blooms purely for looks, April always took notice. Ever since she was a daisy-picking, honeysuckle-licking toddler, she was enamored by the language of flowers. A bell chimed, and April was hit with a gust of snow-kissed air. A man walked in with pink roses on his cheeks, planted there by the chill. The one who called earlier that morning for the bouquet of flowers. A flick of a wallet, the swipe of a card, and in less than 5 minutes, he later walked out of her shop with his temporary devotion grasped tightly in his hand. "No love is eternal, no matter how many red roses you give her," April wanted to yell after him, but she stayed silent. Let him figure out for himself that love goes hand in hand with the seasons. Sometimes Chicago summers stay for so long that everyone expects them to last forever. But autumn will always come and rip the summer leaves from the trees, littering the sidewalk with orange confetti. It's such a big mess to clean up that one begins to wonder whether the beauty of the trees at full bloom was even worth the aftermath. Whether all the good times in a relationship were even worth the inevitable fallout.
Next, we have Chris Lee reading his poem, Twang, which captures the sentiment of being love-struck with elegant and delicate rhymes.
Good evening. As you know, my name is Chris. I'm going to graduate very soon here from Saddleback. I'm an art history major. I was very glad to go to this campus, and I can't wait to see what the future is going to hold for me. This is Twang. I felt the strike before the sound. Your gesture, love, the target found. My love profound submits, surround my ardor with your breath. Indeed, love feels like unto death, your bosom hallowed ground. Draw and pull, aim, fulfill, let my passion flow. From your bow, the only sound, a twang before I fall. Thank you.
So with Halloween only 12 days away, we thought we'd bring some chills down your spine by reading Knock Knock, a piece that aptly fits Brandon Maletta's interest in writing fiction that, quote, represents a slightly twisted version of the familiar, end quote. Brandon sends his apologies for not being able to attend tonight, but I will read a personal statement that he asked me to read on his behalf. Thank you very much for your support. If you enjoyed my writing, please read the entire piece in Wall, along with the other fantastic stories. Knock Knock is loosely based on the urban legend of the Black-Eyed Children and was inspired by eyewitness testimony. Their validity is more than questionable. My goal in writing this story was to entertain with this fictional tale based on legend, but have it culminate in a morally murky conclusion that was closer to reality, which is itself a terrifying thought. The story will be read by Shirley Aramo with assistance from Brooke Campbell and Chris Lee.
Elena took another sip of her wine, a few strands of her dark hair bouncing off the glass. She sank back into the sofa, her pale skin glowing in the light of the television. She took a gulp. This time, the rest of the wine ran down her throat like a tear. She saw the TV, but she didn't comprehend what she saw. It just simply droned on, as did the gentle rain faintly rattling on the large roof of her sister's suburban home. She was drifting towards sleep when, crack, she was suddenly cast back into reality. Glancing over her shoulder and across the couch, she spotted her sister's family cat, staring guiltily into her eyes, before gently sliding across the floor upstairs into the darkness. Elena sighed. She should eat and clean up whatever had broken. Getting up was difficult, not physically, but it was difficult. She flipped on a lonely light above the sink, grabbed a dustpan and hand broom, and began to sweep up the broken pieces. It hadn't been long since she had freed herself from Elliot. One night she just told him she'd had enough, that she couldn't do it anymore, that she was going to be moving out soon. He didn't take it well. Dark fingers were only now beginning to fade from the pale skin of her slender arm. He had left to take out the rest of his anger on another bottle of whiskey, and she had left to find a safer place. She was sitting at the table with a simple ham sandwich, pouring herself another glass of wine when the first knock came. It was unexpected, confusing, really. It was late, and if the next one hadn't been so stern and clear, Elena might have questioned whether she'd really heard it at all. "Hello?" she cried across the living room. Her eyes were locked on the door, which changed colors with the glow of the television. The bottle hovered above the table.
Let us in, please.
The voice was young, but clear and precise. The dull mumbling of the television was the only thing that warded off the deep silence after that. The rain had stopped. Elena strived to move as quietly as she could, although she didn't know why, as she slipped out of her chair and drifted toward the door.
We're hungry, and it's time for us to come in.
She pressed herself against the door tightly, gripping the handle firmly. She didn't have to open the door. She could just finish her wine. But they were children, and they were hungry. Look how small the little one was, and how nicely they were dressed. Their clothes were something from another time. The taller one had black ribbons holding her black ponytails together and wore a well-worn but proper-looking little wool coat that ended at her knees. She held her little brother's porcelain hand and pulled the little gentleman toward the kitchen. Elena followed them, the door wide open and unattended.
Thank you, Elena. We were just so hungry.
"Here, you can have this," she said in a soft voice, and pushed the sandwich she had been eating towards them. Her stomach was empty, but she wasn't hungry. She wasn't really much of anything, just fascinated with these children and for some reason, no longer afraid.
Thank you, Elena. We need to eat, and this will do.
She stood beside the table, feeling its cold, hard smoothness under her fingertips, watching the children as they each opened their half of the sandwich, taking the meat between their little fingers, and began to eat only that, their faces turned down toward the table. She moved over to the chair opposite them and sat down. The lonely kitchen light behind her illuminated the tops of their heads, their parted and well-combed hair a glossy black. As she looked away at some magnetic letters on the refrigerator door, fear began to flow into Elena's mind. What am I doing? I think the door is open. These children are... As she looked back across the table, terror seized her. No longer fear, but unholy terror. Their blanched faces were not those of children or adults. They were youthful but menacing and stern, lips like dull red paint. But no detail was burned into Elena's memory as deeply as the profane blackness of their chilling little eyes.
Elliot, he's the one who hurt you?
She heard every syllable of every word as clearly as if they were speaking directly into her ears. She felt their words pulling a response out of her. There was no hiding anything. She had let them in, and they could see everything, every dark corner, every cold place, the violent things she hid from, the places she hid. She had let them inside, and now they could see it all. She would have just closed her eyes, but it would have made no difference. She would have seen them just the same.
Yeah, that is a very chilling story, so you have to read part 2 to find out what happens. I am keeping part 2 a secret, which is appropriate because our next presenter is Peggy A. Carey, who will share her philosophical reflections on the burden of keeping a secret.
Good evening. My name is Peggy Carey. I am a student of the Emeritus Program, of which I've been active since 2009 after the passing of my husband. Along with the magnificent instructors, my fellow classmates, creative writing, art, and philosophy classes, many doors and windows have been opened to me beyond my wildest dreams. The unexpected twists and turns of life, from varied professions, marriage, children, friends, and family, had given me a wealth of knowledge that never runs dry. I would have never expected to be standing here and reading to this fine audience from the Wall Literary Journal 2017, Keeping a Secret. When one has a secret of what is meant to be kept from the knowledge of others or the most private of thoughts, the burden becomes immense. You are taking into your heart the guilt, pain, sorrow, or happiness from the giver of that secret. Beware of this task you promised. You will be the keeper of that secret forever. In most cases, it will weigh on your psyche no matter what its subject might entail. One could say it is a be careful to consider all circumstances and consequences gift from Pandora's box. You never know, once the lid has been opened, what prolific sources of trouble lie within. It could be an emotional fire you cannot douse. It could be pain you cannot heal. Of course, there are the good, uplifting, and happy secrets that give hope and enlightenment to our spirits, those of which are always welcome. From my own experience, though, the box seems to be permeated with more of the dark secrets that can cause damage or change lives in profound ways. This heavy whisper of a secret can manifest itself into a mist that is visible yet invisible. Its responsibility can become a daunting task. You are the vessel that carries the burden of this secret. You also become the blank first page of a journal. The words spoken of the secret will always be written in your heart and etched into your brain. As the journey of your daily life unfolds, the secret is hidden like a viperous snake in the dark corners of your heart. Just when you think you have forgotten the secret, it slithers into the light of day. You have to be on guard continuously of what you say from that day forward, making positively sure you do not stumble upon your thoughts, never to reveal the giver of that secret or its privileged information.
Our next piece is a fictional representation of a subject that is nevertheless all too real on college campuses, a disturbing truth revealed by a victim. The Social Club was written by Kat Zamana, whose first short story, Broken Dolls, was featured in last year's Wall. Kat, who is majoring in English at UCI, served as one of the 2 fiction editors, as well as being copy editor for Wall. We are very fortunate to have access to her creative talents in writing and editing.
I can't really explain where I got the inspiration for this story because, as Brooke knows, the plot structure was very disorganized, and there were moments where I didn't know where it was going, but I did want to write from the point of view of somebody who was really in a low mental state, and then I needed a motivation. There was a lot going on in the news at the time, so this kind of came together that way.
An excerpt from the Social Club will be read by Lexi Jin.
The detective didn't ask if I did it or why I did it. I mean, his mucus and his tears, his vomit and blood stained my mortal being with red-hot accusation. A story of his only I could tell. And, you know, the fact that I was standing over his limp form, holding only a switchblade, didn't really favor my current circumstances. The authorities claimed female insanity. My friends said it didn't happen. And everyone tried to pin labels on me. Everything but a sane killer with intent. I'm just a sorority girl. College girl. And college girls aren't assaulted by rich, white college boys with lucrative futures. Right? Nearly 6 months ago, I've been sworn in as a full-fledged recruit of Alpha, Sigma, whatever. I joined because I knew he was affiliated. And somehow, eventually, I'd find him here. And well, Catherine insisted we came, and we, as in she and I, and us spending time together in a place neither she nor I could hear ourselves talk, and us sorority sisters, we now are apparently best friends. And I found him. I found him. And he stood alone at a bar. Pathetic. I boiled inside of me to see him so vulnerable, so human. I knew him once. I knew him intimately, like passing by. I knew him from the back alley of which he pushed me in. I knew him from the bruises he left, and from the psychological wounds that have not yet healed. I knew him from that stupid fraternity sweater that he so stupidly didn't take off because he was rude, and that was a big mistake. He wasn't a face I painted on the entire male race. He was the face. And he was the sinister monster that haunted my dreams. And then he was gone. I couldn't find him, and suddenly Catherine was gone, and my head was spinning. And I slipped through the back door to the club and withdrew a pocket knife. Where is she? He's standing there. He goes, who the hell are you? Where is Catherine? Where is she? Oh, that bitch, He did not get to finish his thought because I just clunked him in the chin with my fist, and then he lunged at me, and I was ready. I had my knife in my shaking hand, and in that split second, I was almost afraid to act, you know? It was the moment of hesitation that should have cost my life, but then he suddenly stiffened, and his eyes bulged, and his chest lurched forward, and he fell forward, revealing a slim figure. She was caked in grime, and her hair was matted, and there were rings of fingerprints around her neck. Catherine stepped forward. She held a crimson blade. I took the knife out of her hand and wrapped it in mine, marking it with my body, my identity. She had killed him. No, I had killed him. And then the sirens rang.
Within 12 short lines, Brooke Campbell manages to capture an intense internal drama using a powerful metaphor in her poem, Extremes.
Hi, guys. So the inspiration for this is a little more personal in that it's basically me. I was a dancer for 15 years and dealt with a lot of self-image issues. So it's basically a representation of the struggle, primarily the internal struggle that goes on with that. Sometimes, when there is blackness all around her, when she finds herself deserted, and she lies in bed forsaken, she mends her seams. Sometimes, when the night swallows her, when she discovers herself isolated, and she catches her reflection, she tears her seams. She goes to extremes. She goes to extremes.
We're very fortunate to work with the graphics department at Saddleback College. For several years now, students in the graphic illustration class have supplied us with drawings, especially tailored to the written texts in Wall. Ashton Reamer, a student in Rudy Gardea's class, produced the illustration for Extremes, the poem that Brooke just read. Ashton is here to describe the process of developing her impressive artistic rendition of the verse.
Hello, I'm Ashton. Nice to meet you guys. I'm in my second to last semester getting my graphic design certificate. I actually have my bachelor's in communications, but I've always really liked the artsy side of it, like flyers and email blasts and things like that are more of the artistic side. So now I'm back in school to pursue that passion. This is the piece. It's kind of weird that, because I had never met Brooke before, but I heard her poem, and it was weird because I actually pictured it like a dancer in my head when I heard it, kind of a Black Swan vibe. And a lot of other people in the class, they thought like maybe it was like drug related or there was some kind of struggle, but for some reason, and yeah, in my head, I just pictured like a dancer who's struggling. There's so much pressure, you know, when you're out on the stage, I can imagine, to try and be perfect, and then people might be telling you, like putting you down, so you put yourself down, you cut yourself down, and then try to bring yourself back up and fix yourself, and then she catches herself in the mirror and she's just unhappy again and rips her seams back out. So the medium that I use for this is a scratch board. So it's basically, if you're not familiar, it's a white board with black ink on it, and then you just scratch it off and create the design that way. So this is kind of her looking in the mirror. You can see she has a little bun for being a little ballerina and going through her struggle. And it's kind of a surreal thing. She's actually physically looking at herself and fighting herself in kind of like a dark, kind of creepy way. So yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Our next presenter is Celia Wu, a full-time artist whose work has been featured in previous editions of Wall. She will reveal to us how she managed to capture the joyous spirits that radiate from her watercolor painting, The First Day of School.
Good evening. First, I would like to thank Professor Schaefer and the staff of Wall Magazine to give me the opportunity to talk about my artwork. It's about a whole bunch of cute girls. They had a long summer vacation. So finally, the first day of school, they get to see their best friends. So they probably just, scream and so happy, Before I paint this painting, I look at this picture, okay? What I saw is, I'm inspired by the hands and the arms, and it reminds me saying, it says it costs an arm and leg. So if I can manage the challenge and do this painting, I'll be able to have very good reward. So painting is not about emotions, such as happiness or sadness or being cute. Painting is all about planning, calculation, years of training in Saddleback College, and experience of the medium, which is watercolor in this case. Okay, how do I do it, with all these things in my mind? First thing, I have a very careful drawing, which is the foundation of my painting. And to paint a painting is to paint the light. If you squint your eyes, you can see the lights is from the top and from the left-hand side. and keep on moving down to the right-hand side, okay? So all my paintings, I have 3 elements I apply. The first one is value, which is light and dark colors. So I pick 3 colors, primary colors, blue, rosy red, and yellow, which give me a contemporary feeling of the painting. And the second element is intensity, which is the bright and dull colors. When you squeeze your color from a tube, you probably get very bright colors. But if you mix 2 or 3 or more colors together, suddenly the color becomes very dull, very boring. But if you put the bright colors against the dull colors, wow, magic happens. And the third element is the temperature. Well, it's easy. Red and yellow, they're warm. But the blue and purple, they're very cool. So once I apply all the 3 elements, now I'm done with my underpainting. It's time for me to stay back and take a look. How do I complete this painting with unity? Well, someplace I may need to go deeper, and we have to talk about the edges. You can see on the left side, the girl, you can see the white shirts and blue jeans. But when you go back to the darker part, and you kind of confuse which arm, which hand goes, whose girl is this? How does it happen? Who's holding who? You know, that's what we call lost and found. You lost something, so the viewer will go take a look. Oh, this is interesting. What's happening with these girls? Okay, so to complete the whole painting, we have to talk about yin and yang of everything has to be balanced. Then you can say, wow, I did it, okay? So thank you guys. You guys are a wonderful audience. I hope I see you guys next year.
Wait, Celia. Before Celia leaves the stage, I have to make a special announcement. In my mailbox this afternoon arrived a certificate. Celia has won a 2nd place Best Artwork from the Community College Humanities Association. This is a national competition, so thank you so much. I mean, congratulations
Oh, what a surprise.
for your work.
When soldiers and Marines come home from a war zone, they carry with them many memories of their experiences. What they leave behind is eloquently depicted by Chris Dixon in his poem, Transition.
Good evening. I'm Chris Dixon, and I wrote Transition. And basically, transition is kind of a term that's used in the military when you're leaving and then you're processing into civilian life. So a lot of it is just about my time in Afghanistan, and kind of just pick some of the scenes, some of the things, activities that we did while we were there.
Here to read an oral interpretation of Transition is Tyler Klein.
I miss the muddy fields, the times in darkness, the weight strapped around my torso, rolls of canvas bags. I miss carrying sandbags to the wall. I miss the fear, the anticipation of death, poppy fields, heightened awareness. I miss filling sandbags for the wall. I miss the feeling of excitement, red lenses on maps, the green haze in my eyes, safety behind every bag. I miss tying sandbags for the wall. I miss leading, the grip of steel, the snap of impacting metals, Safety behind sandbags piled too deep. I miss stacking sandbags for the wall. I miss my brothers. The ones who said, I hope you don't go. The ones who said, I hope you do. The ones who dig and fill and tie. I miss repairing sandbags for the wall. I miss the unison, the understanding in silence, the aggression and thrill, the adventure. I miss kneading sandbags for the wall.
Our final reading for the evening is Until We Meet Again, a poignant personal narrative that is beautifully rendered by Jean-Michel Oxenbein, an English major with plans of becoming a novelist.
I'm Jean-Michel Oxenbein. I'm French, but I come from Switzerland. I moved to California 3 years ago with a limited level of English, but with a dream: studying creative writing and becoming a novelist. I'm going to read an excerpt of this personal narrative I wrote last year for my English 200 class. Professor Zimmerman asked us to write about a significant moment in our life as a family member. What could be more significant for me as a son than the day I said goodbye to my father? I would like to thank my professor, my neighbor, and my mom, who were wonderful proofreaders. I was 17 years old when I knew the day my dad was going to leave this world. A date and an hour had been chosen a week before. The day came on a cloudy Tuesday morning in September 2005. My dad appeared tired, pale, and a bit nervous, but relieved at the same time, as he was ready to take his train on time. I like to remember him as a long-time traveler heading to a far-off land with which we can only communicate through our dreams. It makes me feel the same way as if we are in a long-distance, father-child relationship, and does not give me any sensation of inner emptiness like the notion of death can trigger. Indeed, his was a one-way ticket for this kind of train that we only take once. A rare, incurable, disabling and painful disease had forced him to make an irreversible decision. Aid in dying has been legalized in Switzerland since 1942, and 40 years later, an association appropriately called EXIT was founded in order to enable people with hopeless prognoses to leave this world with dignity and without pain by drinking a lethal potion. My mom had heard about the association, and since my dad was developing serious suicidal thoughts about escaping from his suffering condition, she suggested this possibility as a last resort. I had a discussion with my dad in his office a year before. When your mom told me about the association, I couldn't believe it, he said, with an expression of surprise and relief. He added, I could not bear the idea of being bedridden. Thanks to her, when this situation won't be supportable anymore, I will be able to take your train, I interrupted him, as I did not want him to say the word. My train? He asked, slightly raising an eyebrow. You know what I mean, Dad, I said as if it was evident. When you leave. It got him thinking. My train, he repeated with a smile, lost in thought. He seemed to like my metaphor. My father had his one-way ticket and could leave whenever he would decide to. Nevertheless, having control of his destiny gave him an undeniable peace of mind and the strength to stay one more year with us. Eventually, the time had come for my dad to embark on his train. Don't mess around, he told me, like a father to his unruly child. It was his way of joking about the gravity of the situation. He knew very well the kind of person I was and the well-behaved child I had always been. Take good care of your mother and little brother, he added. I love you, Dad, I told him as I could no longer hold back my tears anymore. I love you too, my son, he replied, his eyes filled with tears. His last words are still echoing within me. It was not a goodbye, but an au revoir, since somehow, deep inside of me, I knew we would meet again. Thank you.
That concludes our public reading. I want to thank all the writers and artists who contributed to WAL and who came this evening. I want to also thank all the readers and oral interpreters who wonderfully captured the spirit of these works. I want to thank you for being a wonderful audience and sharing this tribute to the literary and artistic talents of Saddleback College students. I want to also let you know that there are more copies of WAL, so if you did not get a copy, there's some in boxes on the table, so make sure that you get a copy on your way out. If you would like to submit, there's submission forms. If you'd like to join the staff of WAL, there's a flyer. And again, if any students were receiving credit for attendance this evening, please make sure to sign the sheet at the table. So thank you all for being a great audience and sharing the stimulating and compelling words and works in this year's WAL.